Experts tell us that just 2.5% of all the water on the planet is fresh, and very little of that is accessible, locked up in ice caps and deep down beneath the earth. And with so much of the available fresh water used up by agriculture, it's becoming an increasingly scarce resource. A group of international scientists, which has based itself in outback South Australia, has devised a system of growing crops which doesn't rely one bit on that diminishing freshwater supply. And as Prue Adams reports, they're now ready to take their groundbreaking technology to the world.
Flanked by the Flinders Ranges and the Spencer Gulf, and perched in the remains of flogged-out farmland, this is a most incongruous sight. A state-of-the-art greenhouse. It's powered by the sun and relies only on salt water as a basis for irrigation.
This setup is unique. Nobody has done what we're doing before, and to our knowledge, nobody has done something even similar.
It consists of concave mirrors.
That might explain why Philip Saumweber has been able to assemble a United Nations of water and engineering experts here on the outskirts of Port Augusta.
What we were really looking for when we built this team is people who had a passion for changing the way agriculture is done. Rather than lamenting about all the problems in agriculture and the water scarcity and the energy security issues, we wanted a team that was passionate about solving problems and coming up with solutions.
He comes originally from Germany, but is London-based, with a background in investment banking and funding big international agricultural projects. He hooked up with Reinier Volterbeek. He's Dutch, with a civil engineering background and a master's degree in water management. He's also worked in Europe and the Middle East. And then there's David Pratt, who hails from Canada and whose expertise is in greenhouse management.
Coming from Ontario, Canada, we don't know what water scarcity is. There's parts of Canada that you don't even pay for water because it's included in your taxes. And, you know, coming here to Port Augusta to a dry, arid area, that with water is an extremely important topic and a very scarce resource. And it's quite enlightening for me.
For years, people have wondered how to make the world's barren places grow and how to use natural resources to make something out of nothing. We wondered too. Then we made it happen. We use the sun's warmth to take the salt out of seawater and bring heat, cooling and power to our growers so that we can produce delicious fruits and vegetables. Nobody has ever done this before.
So here we have the solar mirrors.
It all begins with a 70-metre-long stretch of solar panels.
This is where we collect all the energy. What you see here is concave mirrors. They focus all the sun's energy that hit these mirrors onto this tube.
Reinier Volterbeek explains the black tube that runs through the centre of the panels is filled with thermal oil, which is superheated up to 160 degrees Celsius.
And the oil is then pumped through the tube all the way back to a little storage shed, and that's where the heat of the oil is given to a water storage system.
A control mechanism then determines how that heat will be used. Some will go towards greenhouse temperature control, some towards powering the setup, but by far the most dominant use of the stored heat is desalination of the tidal bore water.
When the heat is given to the thermal desal unit, it meets up with relatively cold seawater, and the temperature difference creates condensation. Nothing more than the bottle you take out of your fridge. If you take it out of your fridge and you put it on your kitchen table, then you see that condensation forms on the side, and that's what we mimic.
It's all done within tubes and can't be seen, but the end result is fresh water for the crop. The brine ends up in ponds and the salt will be extracted as a saleable byproduct.
It's definitely not rocket science. The trick is how you configure and control everything.
What we think is so unique about our system is we're not just addressing either an energy issue or a water issue. We're really addressing both of those together to produce food from abundant resources and do that in a sustainable way.
Well, it's unique in the sense that it's the only example we're aware of in the world where there's that complete integration of the collection of solar energy, the desalination of water, the production of energy sources from electricity through to heating and storage, and then the growing of plants, in this case tomatoes and capsicums, in a greenhouse environment. It's the totality of that system that makes it quite unique.
David Travers was once named Young South Australian of the Year. He's also been a newspaper editor, a political advisor and London-based state government representative.
Philip first came to me several years ago with a bit of a concept that they'd been developing in the Middle East, looking at the ways in which you'd use solar energy to desalinate water and to apply that in a greenhouse setting. And they were looking at that stage at the Middle East and Africa and an Australian location, and Port Augusta was one of a couple that they were exploring. I was working at the time in the Australian High Commission, and we used to get quite a lot of interesting ideas, and I thought for a while this sounded like just one of those other interesting ideas. But the more we looked into it, the more convinced I was that it had some merit.
Now the CEO of the University College London's Adelaide office, David Travers, became so convinced of the merit of the Sundrop technology that he signed on as chairman. The board and other prospective investors were on site the day Landline visited.
Right here you can see that we're now growing every single square metre of this greenhouse exactly the same, which is what you try to do in conventional farming, but is never really that possible in farming.
David Pratt says that in glasshouses there is more control over the crop. Fertilisers can be more specifically targeted than in the field. Irrigated water doesn't evaporate, and diseases and pests are easier to manage. But constructions are pricey to build and exorbitantly expensive to heat in winter and cool in summer. And the cost of producing that power is often prohibitive.
With the Sundrop technology, because not only are we using the sun's energy now to grow these magnificent crops, but we're also using the sun's energy to create water, to create heat, and to create electricity, then that makes it really easy for the grower to be able to produce crops 12 months a year.
Obviously, we have higher fixed costs at the beginning because we're installing solar technology and some other technologies, but over time we have much lower running costs. And we're not exposed to the volatility in energy prices.
The company believes there can be savings of between 5 to 15% over fossil fuel powered glasshouses. At this point they can rely 100% on solar during the summer months, but in winter, when the sun doesn't shine, they resort to diesel power for about 10 to 20% of the time. Now the technology has been proven, there are aims to expand the scale. This experimental greenhouse is just 2,000 square metres, about a fifth of a hectare. But there are plans before the local council for an 8-hectare, fully commercial glasshouse on this site. And there's growing interest from international developers as well.
We've had very positive responses so far, and most of them are coming from places like the Middle East, where the issues of food security and water security are very topical at the moment.
There are places in South Africa where you can do it, Chile, everywhere where it's really dry, and there's just a lot of sunlight, there's not a lot of water. This technology makes sense.
Hey, Colin, here's this week's order.
Thank you.
Here we are.
For now, the small experimental crop is being backloaded on trucks to the major markets, as well as being hand-delivered to a local greengrocery.
Catch you next week.
No worries, thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
When the new big $30 million glasshouse is built later this year or early next, the one-on-one service will probably disappear. It's expected to employ 50+ people and produce almost 4,000 tonnes of vegetables a year. What do you hope to achieve in the long run?
Yeah, many of these greenhouses, of course. That's the whole goal. The first step is an 8-hectare greenhouse that's 40 times larger than what we have now. That's all doable. Financially, we're pretty close.
Our goal as a company is to grow in this sustainable manner ourselves and operate the greenhouses. So we're very much looking forward to building a base here in Australia, but also expanding the knowledge and the experience that we've gained here to other parts of the world.
Will it make you all multi-millionaires, do you think?
We hope so, but more importantly, we'll have a lot of fun along the way.